Chapter 13, Miles to Go, 6. I leaped forward and while Bo was still clawing at the ice with his paws. When my stomach hit the ground, his nose was just vanishing over the edge. I slid on my belly, my arms stretched out, my fingers reaching. My cheek scraped on ice like asphalt. There was no time to scream. My hands were dead numb and inside thick gloves. I felt his body dimly rushing past my clumsy fingers. With every little thing left inside me, I closed my fingers into iron claws and prayed they would find something to hold. My fingers were too numb to tell me anything. But one arm burned. It burned with a heavy wiggling weight. Caught. I lifted my cheek from the ice. The burning arm was lost over the edge, up to the shoulder. I raised my head to see Bo, dangling down over darkness and death. 3 of my lifeless fingers were caught in his collar, but barely. He shook and wrestled, terrified and strangling. His body jerked and twisted. Any more and he would shake himself loose and fall forever. I pulled and grunted. The camera still strapped around my neck pressed like a rock-knuckled fist against my chest. My fingers would give way at any moment. "I can do it, Bo," I moaned. "I can hold on. I'm not giving up." Bo still twisted and shook. "I'm strong enough." I started to pull him up, inch by tortured inch. My arm muscles screamed. A gust of wind bowled me into me like a charging bull. My 3 fingers, weak and numb, gave out. "No!" I screamed as Bo slipped from my grasp. He plunged down into the killing darkness of the crevasse. For a moment our eyes locked. I looked into Bo's eyes, one brown and one green, as his face plummeted down away from me. Time stopped. Bo hung frozen, motionless, my empty hand still stretched toward him. All the world stopped moving. I was trapped in the moment that I lost my dog forever. Then I took a breath and let it out. Bo still hung there in midair looking up at me. A bluster of wind blew a swirl of snow down into the crevasse, and Bo remained frozen above the endless blackness. Time wasn't standing still, only Bo was. I blinked and squinted into the shadows. Bo was stuck. The walls of the crevasse narrowed down to a thin gap, a few feet from the top, and then widened out again. Bo was squeezed between the sides. My heart froze. I'd read about this. Climbers have fallen into crevasses and gotten stuck there like that before, pinched between the walls of ice. At first they relieved. They didn't fall all the way down, but then their body heat melts the ice walls and they slide down a little farther. And they melt the walls again and slide down farther. As the crack gets skinnier and skinnier and they keep sliding down, the ice begins to squeeze them, to crush them. They slide down until they're wedged so tight they can't breathe. And then they die, slowly crushed between 2 walls of ice. "No!" I gasped down to Bo's eyes, looking desperately up at me. "No! Dogs die, but not my dog. Not like that. Not my dog that exploded out from darkness to chase the wolves away. My dog that pulled me from a river. My dog that followed me up a mountain in a blizzard. My dog that tried to jump over death because I told him to. My dog." I tried to stretch down, but I knew it was hopeless. He was wedged a good 6 feet down, way past my groping fingers' tips. Bo whined. He tried to bark, and he slid a few inches lower. "Hold still, Bo," I hollered. Then I remembered the rope in my backpack and Bo's favorite game, tug of war. I jumped back and grabbed my backpack and opened it up and yanked the coiled rope from inside and dove back to the edge of the crevasse. I circled a few loops around my waist and made sure I had enough slack to reach him and then tied a knot at the very end. "Okay, buddy," I shouted down to his terrified face. "Tug of war time, okay? Do you want to play?" Bo whined back and slid a couple more terrible inches away. I dug my knees into the crusty snow as best I could and threw the end of the rope down the crevasse. It dangled in front of Beau's face. He didn't grab it. I shook it in front of his nose, and he jerked his head to keep it away. No, Beau, grab it! Tug of war! My voice was high and panicked. It sounded strange in my ears, like I was hearing some other kid screaming. Beau's eyes dropped even farther into the crack. My muscles shook and my belly tossed and surged. Hot tears sprang into my eyes. Now, Beau! I shrieked. Grab it, boy! Grab the rope, please! The rope bounced in front of his nose. Beau snapped with his jaws and grabbed it. I felt his weight jerk around my waist. Yes, good boy, good boy! Hold on! I started to pull. He wouldn't budge at first, but there was no way I was giving up. I heaved back and he slid loose from the ice's deadly grip. Hand over hand, I hauled him up, my back and arms stinging, but not slowing for a second. Beau's teeth were locked onto the rope, and I prayed he wouldn't lose his grip or let go. When it was almost at the top, a mere foot from the rim, I pulled myself up to my feet in one final lift and fell backward. Beau's head and front legs pulled up over the ice. Lying on my back, I could see him between my feet, scrambling on the ice with his front paws. I yanked the rope with all that I had left in my arms, and Beau, still clenching the rope between his teeth, popped up out of the crevasse and onto my chest. I lay on my back, gasping great empty breaths to the sky. Beau shook himself and whined and clambered on top of me. His weight pressed what little air I had out of my lungs, but I didn't push him off. I wrapped my arms tightly around my dog and hugged him and closed my eyes. I almost lost you there, buddy. I wheezed into his fur. I felt his tail slapping against me. I'm sorry. I said the words, and there were hard tears in my throat. I'm so sorry. Once I said the words, there was no stopping, and I buried my face in my dog's icy coat and I cried. Big, breaking sobs that shook us both. I tried to breathe between sobs, but the air was so thin I couldn't get that much. So I panted and cried, choking on my tears. I was so sorry for so much. Finally, I sniffed and shivered and slid Beau off of me. I rolled over and pulled myself up to my knees. I wiped the tears from my eyes with my sleeve so they wouldn't freeze to ice on my skin. The howling darkness was huge around me, like the shadow of a giant's foot held just over my head. I knelt in the blackness and the ice, and I looked uphill, squinting against the flying ice. And then it happened, what I'd been waiting for. The wind roared to a high pitch. The snow came sideways and bit with the stinging flakes at my face. And then a breathless silence, a stillness like a dream. The blowing gusts of snow gave way. They broke and parted. It was there, huge and beautiful, and so close I could reach out and touch it. I knelt alone in the snow with death all around me, and I saw the mountain. Not alone. Beau was beside me, of course, and the mountain was before me, white and shining, painted, impossibly bright by the moonlight. Shocking, unmovable white against the black of the sky and the storm and the darkness. Mount Rainier is an awesome mountain. It is fierce and it is proud. It is almost angry against the sky. My mouth dropped open. My heart fell down into an icy crevasse, and I came back up flying. My hands fumbled at the zipper of my coat. I yanked at my clothes and pulled my camera free and held it up to everything I'd been seeking. I didn't know if the mountain, so grand, could fit in the small frame of the camera, but I held it up and pointed it and pressed my gloved finger on the button.